Gaston right here, back at you with more information about the Sony A7S III. I just finished posting a video with some information, and this morning we'll learn more. Thanks to the guys at Sony Alpha Rumor, I want to share all that information with you guys, and you may want to hold off if you are thinking about ordering an R5 or R6. This one may be the camera for you. Coming up. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Gaston right here, and if you enjoy the content around my channel, I do gear reviews, tutorials, and behind the scene. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification button for more content like this one. So what do we know on top of all the features that we posted in the last video right there? Well, first of all, we know that this camera is going to be able to record at 600 Mbps onto the SD card. Remember, it's going to have dual SD card HSS2. So now the second thing that we talked about yesterday is that the camera, remember that in 2 videos ago, we talked about no RAW capabilities. And in our last video, we talked about the RAW capabilities of this camera when outputting via HDMI. So this is a pretty exciting news, guys. Now, one of the things that I mentioned yesterday is that perhaps we're going to be able to get more a bitrate, better bitrate than the 10 that the camera is going to record onto the card. And I was assuming that probably they're going to stretch it to 12. Now we learned today that this camera is going to be able to output raw data via HDMI at 16-bit, guys. Yeah, that's pretty crazy, 16-bit via HDMI. And I don't think that the R5 can do that. I mean, drop your comments down below. I'm actually gonna check it. The other piece of information that we learned this morning is that the camera is going to have 15 stops of dynamic range. And I know what you guys are gonna say. The A7 III also does 15 stops of dynamic range, but in reality, the A7S2 had 13.3 dynamic range, when in reality, the output was more like 12 stops of dynamic range. Now 15 is pretty good considering that the human eye can only see 20 stops of dynamic range. So now the maximum ISO of this camera is going to remain the same as the prior version, and we learned that this is going to be 409,600. So if you need all that ISO to crank up, you're gonna have it in this camera, and you're gonna be able to enjoy grainy footage at almost 500,000 ISO. It's gonna be there for you. Now the following is a pretty interesting information, because this camera is going to have Slog 3, and I know they had it before, but in this case, base ISO is going to be 160 versus the 1600 base ISO that you needed to shoot at before. And this is one of the reasons why I never like to play around with this camera with Slog 3, because it requires a high ISO. You have to put ND filters most of the time, and the video looks like really crappy when you're shooting with it, and let alone try to grade that footage. So now we're gonna have 160. So it's going to be much more like HLG, but I'm assuming that it's going to be flatter when it comes to color. So pretty excited about this one. Actually, I can't wait to get to play with that one. Now, we know that Sony's putting camera in people's hands, so a lot of people are actually reviewing the camera right now, and some of these leaks come from those people that cannot keep their mouth shut, and we thanks them for sharing some information with us. Now, when is the camera going to be announced? And it seems like the announcement is going to happen this month, July 28th or the 29th, and Sony is going to start shipping units around mid-August. So this camera may be in our hands, guys, very, very soon, and this one actually is one of the best camera when it comes to specs for a lot of reasons, at least for myself. We're gonna have a 12 megapixel sensor. We're gonna record onto 2 SD cards, not CF Express card. The camera is going to be able to do pretty incredible things. Remember, this one is a video-centric camera, so we're not gonna have crazy photography features here, unlike the R5 and R6, which are photo cameras first. This one is a video specifically designed camera, and probably this is the reason why we're gonna get all these high specs. Now, this camera is not gonna have 8K, this camera is not gonna have 6K, at least for now, that as far as we know. And with a 12 megapixel sensor, kind of like impossible to have 8K, but this camera is going to have 4K up to 120p. Now we have confirmation that this camera is going to have raw data output, and in my opinion, it keeps getting better and better. Raw data output, you simply put an HDMI recorder like an Atomos, and you can actually start running and gunning and shooting up to 120 frames per second raw. Pretty incredible, like 16-bit. I mean, come on, guys. What else can we expect? Now, I'm assuming that the price of this camera is going to be at around $3,300, definitely under $3,500. So we would have to wait and see. Now, we would have to wait and see for the final price, but I'm pretty pumped, guys. So if you want to learn more about this camera, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm going to be bringing you more information as it becomes available. And until then, guys, see you in the next video.